Welcome to Subject to Change, a sustainability podcast. We're here with Majora Carter. Please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. When you see the little microphone in the lower right, click on that to learn more. We're so glad you're here.
Hey.
God, there she is.
Hello there. And hi, Lauren.
Hi, it's so nice to meet you.
You too.
Oh my God, that's great.
Is that
You look
a puppy?
amazing.
Wait, where's mine? Okay, I can see the back of your puppy. I gotta show you mine.
Oh yeah, sorry.
So this one's actually not my puppy, but we're babysitting. This is we've got to say hello. Oh, look, it's like your little, is that a boy or girl?
Boy, yeah.
That's my puppy.
Niall. My niece went away, and so we're babysitting her. This is my favorite puppy, even though I've got two very large ones, but he's much bigger.
It is so good to see you.
I know. It's been like, gosh,
a long time.
When did I roll off the board?
You know what? I don't even remember that whole chapter steering committee brouhaha that happened when Mahesh first kind of stepped in really strongly. That was about when I remember a distinct moment when you were going up the escalator and I was going down the escalator and we waved to each other, and that was like words that last. I wanted to tell you the first thing that I appreciate about the book is that it brought to life something that I remember you saying when we were involved with the USGBC at the same time. You had said, you don't have to leave your community to live in a sustainable one. Mm-hmm. And I've had a recent experience where I've left a job that I had for 15 years. Mm. And one of the things that held me back from leaving that job for a long time was that I couldn't find a job as a director of sustainability. Mm. So I took a job that is radically different from what I was doing, and it has no sustainability in the title. And the reason I felt free to take it was because I finally internalized that statement you made. You don't have to be in a sustainability job to live a sustainability job.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Right?
So thank you.
Happy to help, I guess. But
deliberate words. And another aspect of equipping people, and I think you did it in your book and you do it when you speak, is you have specifically, deliberately used phrases and words to change how people are processing thoughts, like low status community, like the not-for-profit industrial complex. That was a huge smack in the face to me and a revelation in your book. Self-gentrification.
People get really either upset or just like,
oh, I was excited by that. I
know. Thank you for being excited by it, because it really has been really fast. First of all, I didn't make that up. I did not. Like, I learned it from, I don't remember where I learned it, but it was just sort of like, well, yeah, it's an industrial complex. It is to perpetuate itself.
The nonprofit industrial complex.
So am I doing something that's perpetuating what my role is in this, or am I actually trying to help people?
Right. And I have to say, I had a stray thought the first time I read that about, I would say, the early days of the U.S. Green Building Council, when the tagline was, we're working to eliminate the need for us. You know, the USGBC was always saying, we want to make ourselves obsolete. That's our goal. And somewhere, first of all, I think the challenge they have in front of them is bigger than they realized. So I'm not going to totally fault the fact the message has changed, but I think the message has changed, and there is a feeling of self-perpetuation for the work.
But isn't that interesting, though? Because the thing is, the problems that I think all of us, anybody, because look, I was in the nonprofit world, I mean, for a long time, but honestly, I don't think, if I know that there was something else, like, I really was a social entrepreneur. I just didn't know anything about it and nobody told me. So I was like, well, this is where I need to be. But what's interesting is that, you can, I mean, nonprofit is just it's a tax structure. right? That's designed because there are some goods and services that will be hard, to finance. And that's why that structure exists to support, those type of social, goals that might be hard to finance through a particular, business development.
So where is the innovation?
What really strikes me is that the same models stay the same. Like was all for, using that status, and I still am all for using that status, as a way to support people get to a certain point. And then if you need to pivot so that once people get to another point, then you do that and use that status to ensure that you can afford to do the work. But it's like what bugs me is that there's been so little innovation, within it, especially when it comes down to little status communities. Very little innovation, from, so even, and there's this thing that really drives me crazy, that the way that community, the way there's like the nonprofit, industrial complex is kind of like, we need other programs to address poverty in low status communities. I was like, how about we use the same kind of things that built wealth in white communities? Yeah. And using the same daggone things in low status ones, because there are white low status communities too. And there's definitely more people of color. And of course, the racial wealth gap is a whole other issue, but literally huge. We had access to capital, and less discrimination in terms of how it was applied, I think we'd be fine.
Yeah. And you've experienced that yourself. That's the other revelation in this book. I didn't realize how much you'd grown and shifted into development in your own community.
Yeah.
Hoorah.
A while.
A lonely road.
It's been sometimes a lonely road, I have to say. And, you
imagine
your head down and just for fear of getting it chopped off.
Can you elaborate on why it's lonely?
A woman developer, a Black woman, really with no true understanding of how the field worked, right? And I didn't have the mentors. And what I thought I did, I really did think I had some mentors, but, that were in the industry, but I think they were much more comfortable with me being like, the scrappy, grassroots, economic and, environmental justice advocate, but they didn't know what to do with me when I was just like, you know what, I realized that there are environmental injustices that are happening in our communities, but ultimately I think it's a real estate problem. Yeah. And the way, and I was just, I look back and I'm like, oh my God, of course people hated me. Because I was literally just saying like everything you've done, or most of it, not everything, but most of it, has really created the kind of concentrated poverty that my communities experience. And I think I can do something better. Yeah. What really encourages me, and these are some of the things that I talked about in the book, is that there are folks working on the ground, around the country that, have figured out little pieces of this puzzle that allow for opportunities for local development to take place, that really is that talent retention approach to community development, recognizing that there's talent in low status communities, but mostly we've created the infrastructure that makes people feel like they need to leave if they're going to be successful. And what our approach is just like, no, there's plenty of fabulous people within our own community, but we're not creating the reasons for them to want to stay and invest emotionally and socially and of course financially in the future redevelopment of their own city that they benefit from. And that's what this is about. Only two options. They're left to either be sort of places where poverty levels are maintained or gentrification happens. And I'm like, why are there's only those two options in those communities? It's just like, it just seems so distinctly un-American to me. Right. And it doesn't, we can be an America as good as its promise. Yeah. But we just haven't really done that. We've got these established ruts in our minds and our processes. It felt weird. But ultimately, we want nice things too. We want better homes. We want better businesses. That's what we're doing. And so I thought, oh my gosh, what an interesting concept. And so I started using it. And then again, some people got it. They were just like, yeah, we like nice things too. Why can we not? Why aren't we building up our own communities for us? And I was just like, yeah, I get it. And then there were others who were just sort of like, all they heard was the gentrification part.
Yeah, yeah.
And it was just like, it would just stop everything. And I was protested at a certain point, in front of my cafe, saying Majora Carter sells out the South Bronx one coffee at a time. And, oh, F yourself, gentrification.
Oh my God.
Oh yeah, bullhorns and everything. But what's so ironic about that protest, and it was like, 10 people outside, with their kids, and just it felt weird. So outside of this cafe, they were outside, with bullhorns and big signs. And inside there were about 40 people, that came because there was a workshop, being held specifically to support, low-income homeowners in the area, along with, local and aspiring business owners, because there were organizations that were providing, low and 0% interest loans. Mm-hmm. And so the irony of it was like, do you know what we're doing? Like this is what a local developer does. Like we create the kind of spaces that when people want to be in, and then work to fill it with the kind of things that folks actually can access. Support them. That, like, you show me anybody else in this community that's doing anything like that. You can't.
The essence of place. Yeah. It really speaks to all right, in regenerative practice, there's the discussion of how every project, every influence, everything has to be informed by the essence of the place, the essence of the opportunities. So the only way that can happen with development, the only way you can essentialize it, is if the information and the passion comes from that place, which I think is that makes it stronger, more resilient, more informed, and more welcome, certainly. Right.
Yeah. I think there's something definitely to be said for, actually relying on local knowledge and, understanding needs and aspirations. And I think that's definitely, something that's informed, our work as a local developer, whether we're working in our space or somebody else's, community. It's like, the South Bronx is my research and development lab. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. Like, I need to be able to try out, models, within walking distance of my house.
Afraid of opportunity. What was the hardest aspect of it for you to write? The thing that you struggled most with putting in there?
I mean, two of them. I mean, one was just like hard to relive. And the other one was more about the actual reasons why I even wanted to write the book. The first one was, having to relive, losing what was literally the biggest dream I've ever had for my life at the time, which was, spearheading the idea of taking what was a site that was housed this really notoriously awful juvenile detention facility, and pitching, to a mayoral administration two mayors ago, that it could be used for really sustainable and transformational real estate development. And losing that, and we built a whole, team. I literally spent 5 years working with folks in the community, on the idea of it, and, and its program, which included home ownership, as well as mixed income housing, and, working on, identifying both local as well as, national economic developments that would have created 800, brand new jobs, in the community, and, and having a team that was, the most diverse team that New York City has ever had on a development project of that scale, more women and minority-owned developers. And since, I value diversity, we of course had 2 white male-led teams associated with it. But the rest of us were like white women and people of color. And it was just like, you didn't do that in New York City. And I've yet to see another team that looks like that. Wow. But we lost it, to a team that was just 2 white male developers.
Yeah. And with the description that you had in the book, with not any kind of into inspiring or integrated vision for that at all.
Nope,
It's like
not-
people were afraid. Sometimes people are afraid of the opportunity. The
yeah,
opportunity is
oh,
right there, and they look at it and they
totally.
say, holy crap, I
Yeah.
cannot wrap my head around that.
They couldn't. I mean, just some of the feedback that we got, from folks like,
Mm.
from the city at the time was like, oh, well, we don't believe anybody, who makes any money would live there. And it's like people from our community actually they make decent money and would be absolutely happy to live here. I had this whole idea of like a homecoming of people from our community who had to, because nobody built housing that accommodated them because we were too busy concentrating, very, highly subsidized, affordable housing for very, very low income people. People weren't leaving the neighborhood most because they thought it was like a terrible neighborhood. It's just there wasn't much to keep them there, whether in terms of lifestyle infrastructure, things like cafes and bars or, bookstores, or the housing, no housing was being built that they could buy because they were too busy working on concentrating more, federally subsidized affordable housing and homeless shelters. So, and then, so that was like, I'm like, oh God, I have to like literally.
I have to get this out again. Oh
yeah, I was like, great, but some of it was actually funny, like, realizing that I knew that we'd lost the bid already, like before this happened, but the day that it was released to the public was literally on my 50th birthday. It was just like, great, I've reached this like milestone, and he was like, bam, bam, bam. It was, and I had
Thanks,
to.
fate. I really appreciate that, fate.
Oh, it was awful. I was actually up in Troy, New York.
Yay.
My poor husband literally drove me up there, and I'm sitting in the passenger seat just crying all the way up there, wipe my eyes long enough to get on stage and talk about the fact that I just.
Where did you speak?
Lost.
When you
It
were
was
in
the Troy Business Development Council that invited
Okay.
me, and it was this really cool. It was in the former industrial building that had been turned into a co-working space.
Yeah,
It
yeah.
was really awesome, super awesome. I remember I ended up spending like a nice chunk of change there because there were like local shops there, and I was just like, I'm gonna do something to help somebody else. Right
Oh
now.
my God.
Yeah.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
Welcome to the neighborhood.
Yeah, no, it was lovely. It was a really nice time.
Playing in someone else's game.
The second one was, really the reason why I wrote the book, it did come from, how just overall, like there was just such shame associated with being from a low status community. I think especially, when, for me, like as a kid, like I literally watched my neighborhood on the nightly news. It was just like, if someone wanted to talk about how bad something a neighborhood was, it was like a picture of my neighborhood.
South Bronx, right?
Yeah. And even when I got older, HBO, did the things called, it was a documentary series called Hookers of Hunts Point. That's the name of my neighborhood. Most people here are not prostitutes or pimps or pushers or anything like that. Most people are not, like, they're just not.
They hit the news, but
yeah. And so I had to like, this is just acknowledging like the absolute shame that I felt, and working to heal from that was, it made me feel bad to go like I felt that way for most of my life. And, I don't want anybody else to feel that way. I really would like, hopefully my book will help facilitate, people feeling that, those are the way we're taught to think about low status communities. It is a structure that was put in place long before most of us were even born. And yes, systemic racism played a role, just wealth inequality plays a role. They all play a role that have literally nothing to do with the people that are there, because we're just pawns in somebody else's game.
Repairing the fabric of America.
But if we recognize, the value of ourselves and how we can be the tools to help create, wealth and, economically and socially and even spiritually within our community and promote that kind of level of healing, that it starts from the inside and then goes out, then we really are repairing, I think, the fabric of America in ways that we haven't really afforded ourselves the opportunity to do so.
It is really a healing.
Yeah.
It is. I think that's a wonderful term. And even the way we started this talk with you, talking about your TED Talk and how it was a representation of different perspectives, even that is a process of healing, right? Because we have these stereotypes in our mind of a capitalist means this, a communist means this.
Yeah.
So having the conversations it is part of the healing. More about your healing. And I'm just curious, was there a moment where you realized you had healing that you needed to do for yourself? Or did it come upon you slowly?
No, I mean, it came like a ton of bricks when I moved back to the neighborhood. And I think the first couple of years that I moved back here, I moved back to Hunts Point when I was starting graduate school. And I did because I was broke and needed a cheap place to stay, which was, I went to NYU. So that was mommy and daddy's, house. My mom had already turned my my old room into a sewing room. So they were like, done. I'm the youngest of 10. So they were just like, really, is everybody get out. But
we have one, and I'm eyeing his room, I have to tell you, but he's in his second year at Pratt. So
I completely understand, looking back, I'm just like, they must have been like, really? God, we did our job, get out. And but it was beautiful because my parents were elderly, and my dad was 60 when I was born. And so it was, so I am so grateful. Like, you don't even know that I got to know my parents as adults.
That's wonderful.
Yeah, it really was amazing. So for that, I am just utterly grateful to God. I feel very blessed. But what was fascinating was that the first couple of years, I literally would sleep there and then get up like before the crack of dawn and just get out of the neighborhood.
Avoidance.
And super late at night, after I'd like done whatever, young people do to show how cool they are. I was every one of them. And it was, it was never really that cool, but I like to think I was. I played one, in my mind. And that's pathetic. But anyway, but it was and around that time, like literally, I met this guy. I was doing like it was AmeriCorps had this really interesting thing because I was getting some tuition, some money off my tuition. So I did this AmeriCorps program. It was specifically for writers, to go into like Bronx, community, and work with, folks that were doing interesting, do writing programs with them. And I was like, oh, I could do that. And I did. And I met this guy who was just this wonderful, just like, I loved him immediately. And he kept talking about this like arts organization somewhere in the Bronx. And I was like, there's arts in the Bronx, huh? Yeah, I spent no time here. I was like, I had zero interest and even understanding of what was going on in my neighborhood. Turns out it was literally 2 blocks away from my house.
Oh my gosh.
And it was just like folks from the whole Bronx diaspora were like coming back to this space and just like, performance and visual arts. And I was just like blown away. And it was around that time, that's when the city was looking at, building another huge waste facility on our waterfront.
And that started the Bronx River House, that whole revitalization. Yeah. Oh my God, what a beautiful project. Yeah. Inspiration from Jimi Hendrix.
That's when I started to get involved, with, community development, and in particular around environmental and economic project-based development, because it's where my arts, background came in, where, and, it was just like, we need to change what people see. That way they'll be inspired, to work toward the kind of community that we want, as opposed to fighting against stuff all the time, which we needed to do. But we also have like, what were we fighting for? And, ultimately it literally became this book, or what's in the book.
So there's this whole, like, we're going to have to meet at some time in the future. Again, I'm like, my brain is reeling with the stuff that you've brought up that brings to light for me the balance between the communication and marketing and statement of goals, the visuals that compel people, the work behind it,
Yeah.
how deep do you know, like, how do you build the validity of it through the core of the community while you're creating images to inspire that depth of building? You know what I mean? It's like all got to happen at the same time, and it's
Yeah. I mean, you give
huge
people,
conversation.
there's a beautiful Jimi Hendrix quote, and
Mhm.
I don't want to maul it too much, but I'm pretty sure this is it. It's you got to give people something to dream on.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's
how pretty
exactly.
is that?
That's beautiful.
And it's just, and I realize that many low status communities don't have that.
Mhm.
Like our dreams are so far outside of our own communities.
Yeah.
And it's understood that that's okay. Like,
Mm.
and so, yeah, so I want to challenge, why is that okay?
Why is that okay?
No,
It-
and I'm just, no, I refuse.
And then there's the people who say, here's the dream you should be dreaming. And we kind of make sure to make that a thing of the past too.
Yeah. And I'm not saying people shouldn't like leave the neighborhood. We just need like some that decide that this
Yeah.
is something we should be, again, what are we fighting for?
Grab some coffee at Boogie Down Grind.
Maybe we shouldn't even be fighting. Maybe we should let's just build something awesome.
Mm.
And that's what I love. And that's what I do love about the cafe that we started. And it was really is the same kind of thing that made some people hate me, really just opened up a whole avenue for people to see other beautiful folks that were just like, wait, you're in my neighborhood? Like, wait, but I'm building a tech company. I'm doing this platform, or I'm trying to do this and da-da-da. And, it's just been beautiful, like having like a third space, because we don't really have those anymore, that allows people to show how beautiful they are and share it.
Yeah, we're both a little starstruck. Gosh, we so much appreciate this time.
Yes.
We're close to wrapping up, and I know I dominated the conversation, Lauren. I'm really
No, it's fine. I've been starstruck. Literally, I've been going around all day. Like it's Majora Carter Day. It's gonna be the best day ever. Tax day is eliminated. It's officially Majora Carter Day.
You just saved a whole nother soul, Majora.
Wow.
But it's my parents' wedding anniversary, and I said happy anniversary, but it's Majora Carter Day.
So Majora, who's your hero?
Dune Lankard, who's actually he was featured, in my book, and he's a part of the Athabascan tribe, and they're literally trying to create a huge native-owned kale processing and manufacturing up.
Oh,
did I say kale? Kelp.
you did.
Kelp.
Kelp.
Traditional food source, for Native Americans, was almost lost. But, now we also know that kelp, sequesters carbon, more than anything grown on land. And, you add it as an additive to cow feed, and it reduces methane. And
which is
got, like, all
amazing.
sorts of commercial properties. And, unfortunately, multinationals, are doing like their new manifest destiny thing, on native lands, and are just like, we want to permit the ocean so that we're the only ones that can actually farm this stuff. Because it is going to be that big. And Dune is up there working against tremendous odds, but
Wow.
but to secure, really quality livelihoods for future, native, Alaskans, in particular, the tribal communities up there. And it's just been a tremendous watching him. And I'm just, and I've actually had the unbelievable honor, of visiting them last year. First of all, Alaska is like one of the most beautiful places. Oh my God. But it's also so much, if you look at where Native people are, and in particular the Eyak tribe, it was considered a dead tribe. So few of them. And it was just like, but wait, people are still alive. Like, why are you calling them dead?
Yeah.
Literally, why? But again, it's like someone looking in to those communities, and then people responding to like, well, maybe we do suck. And it's just like, no. Let's figure out like how we can grow and build. And so honestly, those are my heroes right now. Like
that's fantastic.
Yeah.
people are now aware that a business that is locally grown and locally grows has a value inherently, but to the external world has a value in reduced carbon and greater resilience and more sustainability and economic diversity. So I'm hoping that awareness gives a little more support to that change. And what should we all focus on together?
If you could have everybody stop what they're doing and focus on one collective effort, initiative, goal, what would that one goal be?
Gosh. Ideally, what I'd like to see, are folks, wherever they are, whether they're like, multi-gajillion, dollar philanthropies or, policymakers, in government, or local community members, like seeing the value of the lowest status parts of wherever they are and recognizing that a critical piece needs to be, how do we equip those communities to succeed so that some, the talent that's there decides to want to stay and be the reasons why those communities succeed.
I love that word equip too. I'm going to keep that present in my thoughts. I think that's a different activation of a word for me.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Thank you.
And that's a wrap. You've been so gracious and fun.
So much.
And giving. I think you've got a new fangirl and an old fangirl.
I'm like, she's been here the whole time.
I know, and I'm dying I really want to hear more about what it is you're working on too, especially as you build out your practice, within the city of Syracuse.
This has been Subject to Change, a sustainability podcast. Thanks for joining us.
This is so great. It's actually, I do have to run now, but I so appreciate this time. What a lovely way to spend part of an afternoon.
Yeah.
Oh, Majora, you've been amazing. So glad about your book. Congratulations. If there's anything we can do to help you support further your book or your work, let us know.
Tell people to buy my book.
Well, Judy, you got to do a book review on it.
Yeah, I'm doing a book review. I didn't want to do it until after we did this, but we'll push that out as well.
Awesome. Yeah. Perfect.
And
thank you.
With our, we're growing in audience. We have a little ways to go, but it's a start, and you're definitely going to help. So we appreciate you.
And they will listen and they'll buy the daggone book. So
buy the daggone book.
That's it. So thank you so much.
Take care.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Have a great day.
Bye.
Bye.